104.7 The Cave, KKLH, Marshfield, Springfield, a proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network.
Touchdown, Kansas City!
Now, it's time for Ned Talk.
It for right now is a beautiful Sunday afternoon, warmer temperatures. I know Mr. Reynolds will be quite happy about that. I know how much you like the warm weather.
Couldn't be any better.
Yeah,
warmer the better.
It's supposed to rain this afternoon, though.
No.
Let's get that rain out of here. Welcome to Ned Talk, your local live sports talk show. I'm Joe Westen. That's Ned Reynolds. With us is the full crew today for a change. Alex Scott, how are you, Alec?
I'm hot. It's too hot out there, Ned.
Supporting the
who do we do about that?
The Steelers gear today.
Yeah, Cardinals are already down 2-0 as of 11 a.m., so might as well pick a different shirt today.
And our world traveler, Josh Roberts, is back with us. How are you?
I'm great. It feels good to be back. I've missed you all.
West Plains to Texas to Springfield, Missouri. You've hit all the highlights.
Yeah.
You can die a happy man now. You've traveled all over. I'll have to check out your passport later on.
Oh, yeah.
So where do we start with? I guess we'll start out with baseball since Alec brought it up.
As Alec pointed out, the Cardinals are playing right now. It's now 2-0 in the sixth inning, but the last I checked, the game was being held up because of the on-field delay. Now, if it's rain, they usually say that, rain. And yesterday's game was held up for an hour because of rain, but this is something else. It may be an injury. I don't know, because we can't see the game. And the reason we can't see it, folks, is now you're saying, you mean they're playing at this hour on a Sunday morning? Yeah, that's the agreement that Major League Baseball has with Peacock. And they signed something like a $30 million contract with Peacock for 18 games during the course of the season to televise the first game on Sunday. And the agreement is you can't go, of course, you have to belong to the Peacock app or whatever you call it.
Yeah.
And then you can't go opposite any other game. That's part of the agreement they have. Anyway, 2-0, the Cardinals trail Pittsburgh in the sixth inning.
I just want to jump in here real quick and say, for all you Cardinal fans who are lamenting the beginning of your season, don't worry. The Cubs are barely ahead of you, and here in a couple weeks, they'll be behind you. Like always.
You know, what happened? The Cardinals were playing well, and then last Sunday we were sitting here talking about it, and I think they were in third place. Things were looking up, and then I, clicked over to the standings, and then things aren't looking so good now. Right. What happened?
It's like we talked about before. It's a season. Major League Baseball is 162 games. You're going to win 54. You're going to lose 54. It's that other 54. It's divided into thirds, and every team goes through peaks and valleys. Mm-hmm. The good teams, the peaks are higher, and for the bad teams, the valleys are much lower. The Cardinals are in between. They're going through another slump. They may go through some more. I don't think any of them are going to be as catastrophic as April's was, but, hey, this is a team that's not really balanced all that well. And as a result, they're going through inconsistent baseball, and you've seen that these first two games with Pittsburgh, which have been ball games the Cardinals should have won. They were right there ready to win. They have the power structure to get it done. I'm not sure that they have the IQ to get it done, and I'm going to stop right there when I say that, but there are certain individuals running the show who play some pretty dumb baseball, in my opinion. But over and above that, they've lost these first two games and losing today.
You piqued my interest. I know you won't say, but maybe Alec will tell us. Who are these idiots?
No, I don't know if I can say for sure Ned's personal opinion. I mean, when things are going bad, I feel like finger pointing just happens across the board. And they say in sports, winning fixes everything, and that's true and right. And a week ago we were winning, so the problems felt a little less. But now we're back, and the offense is struggling, and I believe it was Friday night, we loaded the bases 3 innings in a row and couldn't get in a single guy. It was like we left double-digit men on base. We had a 5-0 lead that we eventually blew because we couldn't get any of those runners across. Yesterday, the offense just bottomed out after a really good few weeks, and thank goodness the division still stinks, and I think as long as we're within shouting distance of that, I don't think there's going to be any front office changes, because you could argue that, well, we're still in this thing.
Not suggesting the front office change. I'm suggesting a change in philosophy, and the guy on the field is the one who carries out. He is a yes man, and if they being the upper echelon of the front office says do this, do they? Oh, yes, we'll do that. Well, I'm going to give you a case in point. Here's Flaherty out there on Friday night and pitching a great baseball game. He has Pittsburgh completely stymied. They don't know what to do. He pitches, he gets 101 pitches, which is, back in the old days, halfway through a game.
Right,
because you're going to
exactly.
throw 200 pitches. Bob Gibson, 101? Get out of here. He would have shot somebody. But the fact of the matter remains, they took him out after 101 pitches because he gave up, I think, a run, something like that. And they bring in Olean, nicknamed Gas Olean. And the Pirates just go, my God, they tore him apart. That I totally disagree with when it started. And this is the mindset now of all of major league sports, baseball especially. Well, you can only go so many pitches because, you're going to hurt your arm. It's the wussification of baseball.
I love that. I love that term.
Wussification.
But you know what? It's more than that, Ned. It's also the monetization of players. They're all commodities to these owners, and so they feel like they're protecting their investment by not letting them go too far and ending up with that injury that makes them have to have that surgery.
Case in point, Steven Strasburg.
Yeah.
He's pitched, 8 innings since 2020? He is not insured, which a lot of these guys, big contracts, they get insurance from Lloyd's of London or wherever.
Yeah.
And he's not insured, and he may never pitch again. And the Nats are going to have to eat that for the rest of his life, probably.
He's on a massive deal, and as sensational as he is when he's healthy, that's a guy that just always struggled with staying healthy. And you're right, we're just in a new era of load management, or and that's more to basketball, but monitoring pitching, giving extra days off. And I can understand to a degree, things are a little different now. It's the way the whole game is operated, but there's been plenty of times where you kind of have to scratch your head when they pull a guy and it's like, I know the pitch count's high, but he's got the command. It's one thing if he looks like he's completely lost control, because a lot of times now these guys are conditioned as such. When they start breaking 100 pitches, you do start to see that it's coming unraveled a little bit. There's only a select few guys that are really still built to throw 100 to 140 pitches.
If that's the case, I don't disagree with it. If this individual is showing physical signs of deterioration, sure, of course, get him out. But not if he's in command, and Flaherty was in command, pitching well.
Because I feel like if a pitcher is really dominating the competition, he's not in jeopardy of hurting his arm necessarily. I mean, I know that it's all about the attrition of throwing that ball, because you are micro-tearing muscles, and after a while that can turn into something big. But these guys that have the stamina to go over 100 pitches, I feel are probably not in the danger as much as they think they are. But again, these guys are so intent on protecting that investment, especially guys with huge contracts, that this is where baseball is. This is what we're faced with. And I agree with you, Ned. I don't like it. I loved watching complete games. When Nolan Ryan was in his prime, that dude probably could have thrown 27 innings worth of pitches and not be tired. But those guys are gone.
And they built it that way now. And, it's interesting watching, because at this point for pitchers, Tommy John surgery is almost a foregone conclusion.
Oh, yeah.
You can't hardly find a starting pitcher that doesn't at some point have that injury happen. I don't know if that's just a product of, guys are throwing harder now. Things are just different. But, man, you just don't see it now. The bullpen has become arguably the biggest facet of a winning baseball team, because your starter, 5 innings is now a really good outing for your starter, and you're going to need a back end to really clean it up the rest of the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's changed so much even from when I was a kid, that usually you wanted to see your pitcher go 7-8 innings, and then you brought in a reliever who probably wouldn't even be a reliever today because he didn't throw hard. A guy like Goose Gossage or Bruce Sutter, they didn't throw incredibly hard. They just were kind of crafty guys, and they just were a different look in an inning. And then all of a sudden, you were facing somebody different. It was hard to adjust, and they had a lot of success that way. But now the game is really built where the closer's not a big deal anymore. You find most teams don't have a designated closer. I think about half the teams in Major League Baseball don't have a designated closer anymore.
And along those same lines, the Royals put a little interesting trick when they played the Cardinals on Memorial Day. They started, and I think it was Memorial Day. They started their closer. He pitched one inning. It's called an opener.
Yep.
And the Tampa Bay Rays were the ones who first started. It's kind of dwindled a little bit here in recent years in popularity, but the Royals did it, brought in Stallmont, pitched one inning. Then they brought in, I've forgotten who the designated starter was, and he had already an inning of rest, an extra inning of rest, went right through into the 7th or 8th inning and stymied the Cardinals on that particular effort. So it can be used effectively, but when you have an individual, again, who is in command and pitching well, just because his numbers have been exceeded, I think that is a lot of foolishness.
You're listening to Ned Talk, your local live sports talk show right here on 104.7 The Cave. I interrupted Josh.
Oh, no,
Roberts.
you're
Josh,
fine.
go ahead.
I
Go ahead.
interrupted you.
No, go
I
ahead.
was just going to ask, is there a limit to how many pitchers you can pitch in a game?
No.
Okay.
No.
I didn't think there was.
Well, I mean, it's changed. Now a pitcher has to face 3 batters.
Okay.
Because there for a while they were playing righty lefty.
Yeah.
Especially in the playoffs, you could have an inning take 30 minutes because the lefty would come in, get the lefty, and then you immediately pull him out, and then righty gets the righty immediately.
There were some games where you would see that the pitcher would not face a batter at all. That they would call they would bring in a left-handed pitcher, they would switch out and go,
they would
we're going to go
switch in.
right-handed batter. And then they'd go, okay, we're going to jerk this guy and put a right-hander in there. And,
You can't do that
it's just
now.
ridiculous.
Okay. So they have to face 3 batters. So basically, theoretically, 1 inning.
Or an inning break. If you come in and get one guy, but it's the last out of an
Third out.
inning,
But it's not
you don't
unusual.
have to keep going.
I think pretty standard anymore is to see 5 pitchers in the course of a game.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Which at one time you would have seen maybe 1 or 2.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a big change in baseball. Baseball is probably the kitschiest of all sports.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it is the sport that gravitates to all these, kitschy ways of winning or kitschy ways of doing things like the shift or the opener or, the bullpen.
How about this one, the
bullpen.
biggest of all? It used to be the only game not governed by a clock.
Yeah.
And now it is.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, we're past the 3rd mark in the season. How do you feel about the clock?
I don't have any disagreement with it because it has shortened the game. That never bothered me, but I can see where it would a whole lot of people. If you're going 3 hours for every ball game sitting in a chair watching a game, so that can get a little tedious. So I don't have any problem with the clock, nor do I have any problem with the throws over to first base, where the 3rd one over, if you don't get him out, it's a balk. Don't have any problem with that because it does limit the mindset. But there are others I hate the phantom runner on second base.
Yeah, I kind of like it. To tell you the truth, I like the strategy behind it, and it does keep from being a marathon.
Except
17,
that
18 inning
cheapens
games.
the game, in my opinion. If you go
Yeah.
extra innings, hey, have the better team win it. This time you're working on a break here, an error there, something like that. And here's a guy coming around to score. I just don't like that part of it. But there are other aspects of it I do, and maybe the game did need some changing somewhere along the line. But in terms of the pitching and so forth and so on, I'm just not in favor of that. If a man is in command, if a Don Drysdale or a Sandy Koufax or a Juan Marshall or a Robin Roberts, people like that are out there, Bob Gibson, let them pitch. That's what they're there for.
Yeah, but those guys aren't around anymore.
That's unfortunately none of them
That's
living.
the problem. I mean, who are the guys out there in baseball right now that you would think of? I mean, the one that comes to my mind, of course.
Clayton Kershaw.
Yeah, I don't think Clayton Kershaw. I've got issues with Clayton Kershaw. Garrett Cole would be the one, because I watch him pitch a
Garrett
lot.
Cole.
He's just a workhorse.
Mm-hmm.
Who
Well,
else?
he's also a lot younger than Kershaw is, too. But Kershaw in his prime, he could go distances.
I watched Sandy Alcantara go over 120 against the Cardinals last year. He threw a complete game. He allowed 3 runs, and then his team got him the lead, and he went back out there for the 9th. And they almost have to be guys that have to earn the right to argue with a manager to keep him in, because Adam Wainwright, and despite his age, has been the workhorse and has been capable of throwing high volume of pitches, and you almost don't, even as the manager, it's hard to go out and pull Adam Wainwright because it's Adam Wainwright. And, if he says, I'm still good, I still got it, I don't care if I've thrown 130 pitches to get through 4 2/3 innings, I'm okay, then they let him go. And unless, they almost have to establish a track record of success in order to earn that trust, because or, have a fairly clean bill of health. I think that's a lot of what the Flaherty issue especially came down to, is he's had his share of injuries, and whether it's for his benefit or not, they're trying to protect him. And
Look, Josh is right, too. The investment, and there's a lot of money being tossed around. One of my favorite memories, and this goes way, way, way back, 50, 55, 60 years ago, was my boyhood hero, Robin Roberts, on the mound for Philadelphia. And he started a game. This guy was dominant pitcher for some really shaky baseball teams. The Phillies weren't very good at all. But he was a big winner and a perennial all-star. He came out in one game, and it was against the Cardinals, as a matter of fact, in the first inning, and he didn't have it. He got shelled. And they took him out after 3 runs, and they're still hitting the ball all over. He was so mad at himself that he started the next night.
Oh, wow.
The very next night, and was back in his form again and pitched, I think, a 3-1 complete game. That's the kind of mindset that those individuals have. Now it's, got to protect my arm here and on that. No.
I think there's some guys that are like that, but I think the organizations are more so that way. I mean, it's a byproduct of Moneyball.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, because that's what runs baseball is money. I mean,
Well,
it's just...
We talk about this all the time. No athlete wants to say, I'm done. They don't want to say their career is over. They don't want to say, I've had too many concussions. They don't want to say, my arm is a rag arm and I can't pitch anymore. So there is a responsibility from the organization itself to wake those guys up and say, hey, listen, it's time for you to step out because we can tell that you're worn out. But I think it has evolved into more of a, hey, we want to make sure that you can pitch in 5 days, so we're going to pull you out at 80 pitches to make sure your arm isn't worn out for the next outing. And so, I mean, it all kind of melds together as far as that goes. And it's in every sport. I mean, except maybe football. You don't really see them pulling quarterbacks out of a game unless they're up by 20, But to what you guys were saying about pitchers, when you are a successful pitcher, you have more say in whether you're coming out of the game or not. To me, that's like in football when a quarterback is able to audible at will. Because they're like, okay, we understand you know what you're doing. You're good. If you audible this play that I called, that's fine. Just don't do it too much.
Yeah.
There used to be this game when I was a kid, and Ned, you're probably very familiar with it. It's called Stratomatic.
Of course.
And it was all based on statistical analysis, and it was a roll of the dice, and there was an opportunity for chance in it. But that's the way you played the game, and it was a big deal for a long time. I don't think anybody cares about it anymore. But I think really the interesting thing is that I think this generation of general managers played a lot of Stratomatic because that's exactly the way they play these games.
Well, you're right. They take a look at the math, the statistics, and it doesn't matter where you are. Cardinals, for instance, made a roster change today, and they dropped their catcher, who I don't think ever saw any action, Trey Barrera. I think it's Trey is how he pronounced his first name. Never saw him. Dropped him from the roster, and they brought up Lucan Baker. And Baker, who played down here and had, I think, when we televised his last game here, I think he had 22 or 23 homers for the Springfield Cardinals, then went up to Memphis. Anyway, he's been hitting well for Memphis, so they brought him up, and he's the DH today. All based on what he has done in the minor leagues because he has no big league experience. So they're putting a lot of stock in the numbers and the achievements that the guy's done in the past. That's where you run into circumstances like that. Usually you give these guys some kind of little trial. Well, spring training is the trial. But still, having said all that, it's a chance, and you're basing it on the numerical aspect of things.
Well, let's point out, too, that a lot of Major League franchises now, what they do is they wait till a player's past a certain point in the season to bring them up so that they get that extra year away from free agency. And that's a little game too. Oh yeah. That's a little game too.
Money.
All right. It is 2-1 with Cardinals trailing the Pirates top of the 7th inning, runner at first base. Watch it on Peacock, I guess. Don't listen to us. We'll be back in a minute, talk about the Chiefs.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, part of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network.
Here we are together again on a Sunday, and as Joe Kelly, our voice, mentioned, we are the network around here for the Kansas City Chiefs. We have an event coming up a little bit later on this summer, don't we, Ned? Have we announced that yet?
I want to say it's July the 12th or 13th. I think the 12th is where it's going to be, and we'll have a new venue this year, but better for Mike the intern, to come out with all that information. He's
okay.
Putting it together. But, yeah, I think it's July 12th.
Okay. We'll keep you posted on that. But OTAs are starting, and there's talk around the Chiefs. Looks like Chris Jones may get upped to a long-term deal, which I don't think would be a bad thing. What do you think?
Not a matter of might. It will get done. They want him around big time, and why not? The man is a dominant defensive player, one of the leaders in pass rushing. He is your quintessential defensive stopper. But my problem with him is that he's not necessarily young anymore, but still he gets the job done, and that's what counts.
He's not asking for anything out of line. He wants to be paid along the lines of the second highest paid pass rusher in the NFL, which most the pundits said today when I was looking at the story said he is. Sam Darnold being the top one, he being in the second position. So he's not asking for anything out of line. I think it's $25 million a year.
About $25 million.
He's getting paid $28 this year is what he will be paid. And one of the reasons why the Chiefs are kind of in a rush to do this is DeAndre Hopkins is on the market, and they would need to make some cap room to be able to sign him because they have less than $1 million right now.
Just over $600,000 is all they have in cap space, and that's not going to get anybody.
No.
And you've got to be able to.
It'd get me. I'll go out for it.
Alec is up.
Yeah.
Have to somehow rearrange some of these contracts and so forth, but I wonder if they really want him.
Yeah, I saw today that they had made an offer with a very low base salary with a lot of incentives to kind of build him back up going into next season when he could be a free agent again. So obviously they've got their toe in the water on this deal, but they would have to make some significant changes to be in the running. Now, I understand this week that Buffalo said they're out. They're not even going to try now.
Uninterested, and I think the one team, I think Dallas Cowboys are out of it too, and they were considered to be a prime favorite. But it looks like the Patriots would be the one who have the biggest command, and then they're not sure they can afford it either.
Kind of interesting. What do you think? Do you think he's a changer for the Chiefs, Alec? Do you think he's the type of guy that you either dump some salary or you rearrange things to make it work for at least a season?
I mean, if the moves are there to be made, I would do it, especially if he was expressing interest in return. But I mean, it's going to be tough to sign him for anybody that's as tight against the cap as the Chiefs are because he's going to have interest just from so many different people. I don't know if this is going to be resolved soon just because he has time and he has suitors. So he's going to be able to kind of hear everybody out, get all the sales pitches. So, if he was really expressed like, I want to be in Kansas City, then I think you do it because he's an elite talent. But if he's like, well, I would like to come here, but I'm also talking, it's like, well, we've got our own money problems right now, maybe not.
You make a good point, Alec, especially in terms of the chronology, because he has said he wants to join the team by the start of training camp. Well, that's in the end of July, for heaven's sake, so he has the rest of this month and much of July to work with. What
do you think, Josh?
I think he could make a difference. I mean, he's a great receiver when he's healthy. He's a great receiver when he tries. I'm a little concerned about how much money he's going to want because
he said Beckham numbers. So what I think 15 million a year.
15, 16
well,
million.
I think that's fair for someone.
I think that's fair. I mean, if he expresses interest in being a Chief, I agree with you, Alec. If he says, "Hey, I'd love to play for the Chiefs," then the Chiefs should try to get him. I just don't know how they're going to be able to free up any space in the salary cap.
I think it's 600, if I remember correctly, 664 million or something like 1,000, I should say.
Yeah, they're under $1 million right now.
Yeah, so theoretically they're going to have to free up about $16 million.
Well, if they sign Chris Jones to a long-term deal, and the thought is that the deal would be about $25 million a season, they would save $3 million this year on that long-term deal.
Okay,
so that gives them. Here we are playing mathematician on this.
Yeah,
there's a little under $4 million, but that's not going to get him. So they're going to have to make some moves, and I suppose that probably they'll go to Patrick Mahomes at some point.
I don't think you can
restructure.
you can never underestimate what these front offices can do. The salary cap is almost it's almost fake. Like the way these guys can manipulate it and turn guaranteed money into turn their salary into a signing bonus, move things around, move things up, and all of a sudden the team's like, we're real tight against the cap. And it's like, well, we went and talked to our 3 highest paid players, gave them the same amount of money, but worded it differently, and all of a sudden we have $12 million in cap space. So it's they could do it if they want to. It's just a matter of if they want to bad enough and if he wants to be there.
That's a very good point that you make. It is bogus. No team has ever violated the salary cap. The NFL makes damn sure you're not going to. They don't want that salary cap violated because it casts aspersions on the rest of the teams. Therefore, they'll go to every effort to make sure it doesn't, including the juggling of books and so forth.
Right.
Does it really exist? There are a lot of players and front office people who say, it's more media than anything else.
Yeah, it's lawyer ball, right? Lawyer ball.
And it helps and it helps these teams keep the player top of their line money, and it sets a top bar for what you pay your players. But they could make DeAndre Hopkins fit without probably cutting anybody if they want to.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like the beginning of that manipulation of salary cap was when the Cowboys signed Deion Sanders all those years ago.
Well, there were several catalysts.
They signed him for a small salary and a huge signing bonus. Like his signing bonus was twice his salary. And I remember at the time thinking that how'd they do that? How did he do that? How's that legal? But
I mean, it's been kind of slow. I mean, that's the only really thing about the Chiefs to talk about other than Patrick Mahomes hit a couple of long balls at a celebrity softball game over the weekend.
Crushing softballs.
Think the Royals are going to make a move to try to sign him?
And why they can't, because he owns a team.
He could step down and play. That puts some butts in some seats, don't you think?
It was like Kaufman would be loaded with people.
Exactly.
One of those home runs was in the Parker too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I saw a highlight of it. He hit it to the wall, and once he rounded third, he walked home.
Oh yeah,
he just walked.
Who was the other celebrities in this game? I saw that it was him, and then that was about it.
That's all I saw was the highlight of him hitting the end of Parker home run, and I'm like,
that's the secret. They had one celebrity. And they put all the attention on him, and you don't notice that you don't actually know who any of the other people are.
Well, I mean, that's all you need is him, right? Though, I mean,
he's the biggest, Kansas City, yeah,
he's the biggest celebrity in Kansas City, the biggest name in football right now. When we come back, we'll talk about TV streaming and what's going on in the world. Okay, Ned Talk.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, part of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network.
Ned Reynolds complaining about newspapers right now. I've got the mic down so they can't hear you complain about newspapers, but... Anyway, we're talking about sports. One of the big things with sports that's happening these days is streaming services, which is just, if you're a person that loves entertainment like myself, it is pretty confounding because after a while you realize you're paying more for your streaming services than you ever thought about paying for cable.
Yeah.
Because you've got about 45 of them. Because there's something interesting on all of them.
It's never ending.
And now sports is leaking its way into the streaming services. Started last year with Amazon, and we're looking at baseball is probably going to go that way pretty soon too, with the whole collapse of Bally Sports. And one of the first dominoes to fall this week, Padres kicked off Bally Sports.
There will be others because of the failure, the bankruptcy of Diamond Sports, which is the group that Bally's is a name that goes with it. Diamond Sports is the group. They're a subsidiary of Sinclair Broadcasting, and they're the ones who are also suffering from this. But yeah, they're in bankruptcy. The Bally Sports or Diamond Sports failed on a payment to San Diego, and therefore, under the terms of their agreement, the team and MLB could pull the plug, which they did. And as of last Wednesday, the Padres are now being seen by individuals on the Padres Network, number one, and those who want to watch it on streaming. And that is exactly how Major League Baseball is being pushed right now, all towards streaming. I'm not going to put a year on this, but certainly within the foreseeable future, all these games are going to be streamed. And you know what that means for us? Cash. Pay out. You're going to pay probably pretty good amounts of money to watch your favorite team, Cardinals, Royals, whomever, on streaming. Now, you'll be able to see them, but it's also going to be very costly. And I think, Joe, you're right. It's going to be probably ending up more than what is being paid for maybe not cable, but certainly for the satellite services, because they have charged out the pocket.
You know, my thing is, if it goes to streaming, Major League Baseball has their own streaming app as it is now anyway, which you can watch through most of the major things out there, the Amazon Cube and Roku.
Cardinals game.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can watch it through the app. You can purchase the season pass through it. I purchased my season pass through DirecTV, and you know, it's frustrating when I turn on to watch a game and it's not there. It's blacked out for whatever reason. A game will be blacked out, even though it's not the Royals or the Cardinals or somebody like that. It just gets really frustrating with the stupid Major League Baseball blackout rules. I mean, they're just onerous and they're really, really stupid. And I hope that if the streaming does come around, that one thing will improve. I know most of the big teams are already moving to having their own streaming services and apps.
Well, and a lot of them do. Dodgers have theirs, the New York Yankees, the big market teams that can afford to employ that level of telecasting do have them now. But how does it affect regional teams? And the Cardinals are a regional team. Yes, they're an original regional team, but and one that has a huge following. But how will that affect them? That remains to be seen. Kansas City Royals, another one. I'm very curious to see who the next team bows out of the Bally Sports. I'm told by individuals involved and by reading that the Minnesota Twins are probably the next ones, but the Guardians are involved in this too, and there's several lower-level teams who are likely not to get paid. And once they miss a payment from Bally's, out goes the plug.
Any word on the Cardinals where they're sitting at with it?
There's also, and I cannot confirm this from anything I've read, but the Cardinals may have already been paid. And they're paid in increments during the course of a season. The Cardinals are owed $60 million this year. That's every year until 2031 or 32, whatever the length of that contract. But if one of those incremental payments is missed, then they have the options.
What do you think, Alec? You're the youngster in this group.
Well, you know, it's writing's on the wall with the streaming services across all sports as they move that way. I mean, Major League Baseball's already got like one game every Friday nights on Apple TV. They've got the Peacock game that's happening on Sunday mornings. It's just a slow trickle that direction, and I'm almost surprised that a lot of these sports leagues, as my phone falls out of my pocket, are not going with anything like this already. You know, I feel like if you really want to control it, how are you not just getting away from all these networks and really just running the show yourself? It seems like some of these leagues are big enough that they could do that. Or maybe I'm just underestimating the money that CBS's and ABC's and TNT's of the world are bringing to the table. But like Ned said, tough to put a year on it, but I'm curious to see where it goes, because I want to know what I need to buy to watch the things I want to watch, because I'm already having to, as a football fan for an out-of-market team, I'm already buying the NFL ticket each year. I have DirecTV strictly because they carry Bally. And if the Cardinals are off of that, then I need to start looking around, because I would welcome consolidated watching of sports on lesser avenues, because it's just getting ridiculous for how many you pay for.
Alec, I think what the game plan involves is if the plug is pulled, then each team has its option of forming its own network. And in the Cardinals' case, I'm quite sure they'd come down here and find an outlet, be it cable or be it whatever. And then that particular outlet would have the advantage of charging whatever they want. It's going to be a lot of money, and it would probably be streaming nonetheless. But all of that is going to be involved with individual teams. Now, not all of the major league teams belong to Diamond Sports. I think the total is 14, if I'm not mistaken. But the others all have their own networks, and they can deal with it. So you just take a lesson from, we'll say, the Yankees or the Red Sox or the Philadelphia Phillies, those who have their own particular outlets, see how they do it, and that's exactly how it'll work here. But the bottom line is it's going to cost us more.
Yeah, it's really interesting this year, too, because I like Alec have DirecTV, but because of the disagreement between DirecTV and Color 10 locally in our market, the only place that I could watch Chiefs games when they weren't when they were on Color 10 was to watch them streaming. And the games worked just fine. I switched over there and watched it. Now there's a lot of problems with the first Amazon telecast too, but or Streamcast or whatever you want to call it. But I was thankful to have that this year so that I have the option to watch a game that I couldn't because of this match that was going on between DirecTV and Color 10 in town.
It's a really complicated circumstance. There's no question about that. But it's all designed to raise the coffers of how Major League Baseball teams and football and all the others operate. How the significant factor is that if the plug is pulled on all the rest of them, what's that going to do to the amount of money that these teams had looked for as incoming profit? In the Cardinals' case, $60 million. Now, in their terms of their altogether budget, that's not very much at all. But when it comes to the extra money they want to divvy out for free agents or make big trades or something of that nature, it's going to put a monkey wrench into that. And the Cardinals are just one of the teams that would be involved in circumstances like that. This is really an ongoing circumstance. It's probably not going to be solved right away. Maybe by the end of this year, there will be some resolution to how it works. And maybe by next year, it'll all be streamed, but I doubt that very much.
It is amazing how the world has changed in such a short period of time with all the streaming services coming out. I know there was a talk at one time that Major League Baseball might go pay-per-view for the playoffs, that they would be the first team that would go into the playoff round, and even the World Series is pay-per-view.
I hope not.
I agree, but it's really strange to me, too, that you can no longer watch the Major League Baseball playoffs on a major network. I think Fox carries the World Series and maybe carries the National League Championship. I don't remember which one they carry, but all the rest is spread out onto TBS and TNT. I think one of the good parts of all this, though, is that the cable networks are now fighting at their chance to get at the table and eat some of this stuff, too, because NBC's back carrying baseball for the first time in a long time. And TNT's carrying baseball, and TNT does a really nice broadcast on Sunday afternoons with their games.
Yeah, and that's how it's going to work. I don't think, Joe, in all honesty, and maybe this is Pollyanna thinking, but I don't think any of the major events, the Super Bowl, World Series, All-Star games, things like that, I don't think that'll ever be not on one of the major affiliates. That's not to say ABC, NBC, or CBS, but all of those included with TNT involved. And some of the others, Fox Sports, I don't think we'll ever see it down at one of the lower levels of the streaming devices. But again, that's Pollyanna thinking, perhaps. I just hate to see the major events not available to everybody.
The only thing I'll say in rebuttal to that is WrestleMania's pay-per-view, and it has billions of watchers. They make tons of money off of that thing.
And it's tough to say. Never say never. I never. Peacock, we talked about this off air. Peacock is going to be exclusively streaming an NFL playoff game for this upcoming season.
Playoff game.
I never would have thought we'd see that with, those are going to be games that are going to draw in tons of viewerships. And what I have to imagine they will pick the least likely to be watched game and put it in there.
Already decided. It's the Saturday night wild card game.
But do they know? Can they pick which wild card matchup?
No, they cannot.
Because my guess, if I'm not saying this will happen, but if something happens and the Chargers have a breakout year and the Chiefs are in the wild card game, I just can't imagine a world where they throw the NFL's most marketable team right now, Kansas City, into a streaming exclusive matchup.
Well,
That'd be their
that
nightmare.
would be a folly if they did.
That'd be their nightmare.
Well, I think the NFL is going to control that, and you're probably going to see. Well, let's see. Which of these matchups are we going to put on that Saturday night game on Peacock?
Yeah. Which one is Cleveland being hosted by Tennessee?
But I mean,
Peacock exclusive.
Well, I mean, you look at the Thursday night football games. Those were turds. Those games were awful, awful football games. And finally, they've come around to kind of try to make those games a little bit better to increase viewership because the NFL realized we got to do something with Thursday night.
Well, they've also put in flexing for Thursday night, and some of the NFL teams were not happy with that. I'm not happy with it because I think it puts undue pressure on the players. But the NFL said, no, it doesn't. It's going to be fine. No, it doesn't because we're making more money out of that as well.
Nah, we're fine, guys. Trust us. We know. I know we don't play, but we got an idea of what's happening.
There's one thing that I do. I don't like the Thursday games. I just do not like it. I think it's too many, except for Thanksgiving. But there's one item that I do like, and that's Al Michaels, who is, in my opinion, the best of the best.
When we come back, we'll talk about what we're streaming this afternoon. It's Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, part of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network.
You know, the conversations that we have off air are far more interesting than what we have on. We're just sitting here talking about.
Tell us when you're going to put us on the air, will you? Come
not
on,
knowing, not knowing when we're paying for something is. I feel like I should get that app that they advertise all the time.
Tells you, it's like,
it tells you that you're paying for all this stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I just have a weird. I'm old enough that I'm like. Know that I'm going to have to hook my bank account up to that. And I'm going to be like, I don't want anybody messing around in my bank account. Damn it. You know, I get that way. But, you know, I'll sign up for 50,000 streaming services, which I have right now.
And they're direct deposit.
Yep.
Yeah, they just take it right out. It's no big deal.
No big deal.
It's a free 30 days. I'll cancel before that 30 days is up.
Yeah. I was just saying, I watched Apple TV in a year. I pay for it every month, but I haven't watched it in a year.
Yep.
Or it might be something I want to watch on a Saturday night.
One time.
Oh, my gosh.
Worth all hundreds of dollars.
Yes.
Exactly. So, Ned, what are you going to stream this afternoon?
I will be streaming nothing since the Cardinals game is already over. And it won't be streaming it because you can watch the golf tournament, I imagine, on one of the major TV networks. But the Cardinals lost their game today, 2-1, so streaming is out. Watch a little bit of the Denver Nuggets and the Miami Heat tonight, and that'll be it. Mowing is involved today, too.
Oh.
You and that mowing.
You like the mowing.
Got to mow every week, guys.
Shirt on or shirt off?
Oh, never a shirt off. No. This 81-year-old body you don't want to see. Believe me. Nor do I for that.
Josh and I are big Star Trek fans, and there's an episode of Star Trek where William Shatner is working out.
Yeah.
And then he walks through the Enterprise with a shirt off and a towel around his neck. And I don't even like to go from my bed to the bathroom without a shirt on. I'm afraid that the dogs will see me and get embarrassed or something. So.
Start howling. Oh.
Start biting your leg.
What about you, Alec?
Yeah, probably nothing this afternoon either. Nothing really on that sports-wise catches my interest until the finals game tonight. I'll probably be tuning in for that. See if Miami can put up a better fight than they did on Thursday night.
I saw where Denver's coach said, we have not played well at all.
Yeah, they look awful, don't they?
They won by 11.
Yeah, they won by 11. What about you, Josh?
Oh, I don't. I'll probably stream something. I'll probably watch a movie or something this afternoon because I have no interest in the NBA. In fact, I jokingly said that I think Milwaukee's going to sweep this series.
Really, I think you're missing something. I joke with you all the time about hockey, but I think you're really missing something by watching Djokovic because he is a phenomenal player.
That's what I've heard.
I mean, just phenomenal player.
Just watch him a little bit because you're seeing a guy who has complete control over everything. Miami has Bam Adebayo on their ball club, and he's a great player. But in terms of matching up physically with Djokovic, he can't do it, and who can? I mean,
Well, maybe I'll watch a little bit of it. Just
He's impressive. I mean, he won back-to-back MVPs for this year for a reason, and when you look at him, it's just like that guy, best player in basketball, and then the game starts, and it's like, well, he's got a triple-double by halftime. I guess this guy's pretty good.
He has 9 triple-doubles this year, these playoffs, and that's an all-time record.
I am disappointed in all three of you. The greatest rivalry
the
in
XFL
all
on
of
today?
sports, the greatest rivalry in all of sports renews again tonight.
Oh.
And none of you are watching it.
what?
Yankees-Dodgers on Sunday Night
Yankees-Dodgers,
Baseball?
Sunday Night Baseball, yeah.
I may watch that. I didn't even know that was
Judge
happening.
crushed
I
the
can't-
fence last night.
I can't ever find baseball on TV.
It's on the 4-letter network.
Okay.
Yeah,
The 4-letter network.
So
Hulu.
you can
Starts with an F.
It's on Hulu.
Start with an F.
something like that. Yeah. All right, guys. We'll be back in the studio next Sunday for another round of Ned Talk. Listen to us as a podcast through our website at 1047thecave.com. Download us through our Cave smartphone app or just search out Ned Talk wherever you get your podcast app. Thanks to Mike the intern, Brian Tyndall, Corbin Campbell, and Nick Fury. We'll see you guys next Sunday. Enjoy yourself.